Hi, Eric. My name is Amber Estenson. I'm otherwise known as that Midwestern mom on social media. Thanks so much for sitting down with me today to talk about beans. Could you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Hello, Amber. Yes, I'm Eric Samuelson. I'm a farmer from Crookston, Minnesota. I'm currently serve on the Northarvest Bean Growers Association Board of Directors.
Fantastic. How long has your family been in farming?
My family, actually, where we're at right now, this home farm was purchased by my grandfather in 1940. So he was farming before that, before he moved here. But so it's been my grandfather, my dad, my uncle, and now me, and now my brother and son-in-law here on the farm. So I've been on my own farming since about 1989, I believe. So I mean, that's my dad and uncle farmed together for 30 years, and then when my dad passed away, me and my uncle farmed together, and then when he retired, then I took over and became the sole operator.
What crops do you grow here?
Along with my dry edible beans, we grow sugar beets, wheat, and soybeans.
So what exactly is an edible bean?
What is an edible bean? Well, our dry edible beans are a legume, not similar to a soybean, but a distant cousin, I would say, to a soybean. They're form more of a ready-to-eat bean. A soybean is processed into many different things, oil or animal feed or something like that. A dry edible bean is produced for its seed, and it's a field to table type of seed. So I mean, there's really no process into it other than just a little bit of cleaning goes into producing a dry edible bean for consumption.
Mm-hmm. So can I eat one right out of the pod?
Well, they are dry edible beans, but I think it might be a little tough on your teeth because they do have a little bit of a solid texture to them when they are harvested. Normally, a dry edible bean is soaked, as maybe you know, to make baked beans or something in the process, because to try and just eat a dry edible bean right out of the field would be, yes. Can you do it? Yes, and they're very good in protein, but probably not good for your teeth.
So why beans?
Dry beans, we started growing dry beans probably in the mid-'80s. It was a way to diversify. I mean, we saw an opportunity for maybe a little bit better revenue generator. So we started growing mainly navy beans back in the 80s, and it's kind of just kept going from there. It's just a nice diversification for our other crops. It's a little different season crop, and for the most part been a good revenue generator for our operation. I mean, and I think they're kind of overlooked, because I mean, you go to the store and you buy green beans, yellow beans in a can off the shelf ready to go. You buy that package of dry beans, you got to take it home, soak it. There's a lot of prep time. Mom doesn't have that time to get it from dry to, but the pork and beans, baked beans, that's always a huge success. I mean, it's just the matter of the, in the dry process is a cooking time, and the prep time is a big drawback.
Mm-hmm. I do remember Grandma always had a pressure cooker, and that's what she did her beans in, but now we have the Instant Pot, which is making things a lot easier. So maybe this is the beginning of the comeback.
Yep, I think that is. Well, it's just a new avenue for it. Instant Pot, air fryers, all those things, just in order to speed up the process.
So Eric, can you tell our viewers, where do beans come from? Where do farmers get their seeds?
Where do farmers get seeds? Well, let's figure that one out. Most of my seeds for my dry bean production comes from Western United States. It's called Western grown seed. Mainly we buy Western grown seed based on the fact that their environment allows it to be produced with a lot less chance of disease issues into the seed.
Okay, so if I went to Farm and Fleet and picked up one of those little seed packets that I see on the roundabouts by the checkout, how many packets of those seeds does it take to do a whole field?
A whole field. Well, let's define a whole field as 160 acres. That would be a quarter section. Currently, I'm planting navy beans at roughly 115,000 seeds per acre. So if we do 115,000 times 160, that would give us roughly how many seeds we need. Most of the bulk seed is sold in units, which is 140,000 seeds. So 115 would be maybe 8/10 of a unit, so to speak. So, wow. Roughly, I would say a quarter section would take somewhere in the neighborhood of 7,500 pounds to 8,000 pounds of seed.
How big is an acre?
An acre is 43,560 square feet.
How long does it take for beans to grow?
Typical varieties and some certain varieties have different maturity dates, but typically I would say right around 90 days. You know, June, July, and August would be your actively growing season, and then, you know, they rate a bean. Longer season varieties have longer maturity dates, so I mean it can be anywhere from, let's say, 90 to 100 days, depending on the variety.
Can you walk me through the whole season, step by step, of growing beans?
Growing dry beans in northern Minnesota is typically we start early May. First of all, we have to get the ground prep, so we probably spread a pre-emerge chemical, tillage pass. We move into seeding our dry beans. May 15th to the end of May is probably our typical window of opportunity. They need a warmer soil condition. They're not very frost tolerant, so usually the middle end of May is a good time to plant. So then after we plant, then you have 2 to 6 weeks of, you know, just monitoring the crop, and then you move into a weed control. You know, I mean, the pressure starts to come, and then you spray your weed, you know, mainly for broadleaves and grasses. And then, now we're into July, beginning August. Now you're looking at a fungicide. Now your dry beans are blooming, they're maturing, they're ready to start setting pods and producing beans. So then you're looking at a fungicide application to try and keep the disease pressure down in your beans. So that would take us through most of August, and then usually a typical harvest season hopefully starts right around Labor Day. So that early part of September, we like to get our navy beans combined. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's a relatively short season crop compared to some other crops. So I mean, it's a nice diversification for the farm.
Mm-hmm. So this might sound silly, but I realize that beans grow flowers, but I don't know if everybody else did. Typically, do the flower colors change depending on the variety of beans?
Well, yes, beans do have flowers. Not the flowers like you buy a bouquet and give to your girlfriend. That there are a little bit different. That they do need to form a flower in order to form a pod. That's how they pollinate themselves. Yes, and different varieties have different colored flowers. When you go out in the field and you pull the plants back, you'll see purple flowers or white flowers, and that's generally where the pod set would be. That's where they're going to develop a pod and fill for their bean production.
So I buy a big bag of calico beans when I make bean soup. I soak them. Are the beans from the field dried even further to get to the store in that bag of beans that I'm buying?
Not typically. When we harvest our beans, we shoot for a starting moisture, probably 18%. You know, 18% moisture beans come out of the field. They're considered dry at 13.5% moisture. Once you start drying edible beans down too far, that's when you typically end up with more splits and cracks you'll see in that bag of beans that you get. So you do want some moisture in them. So for the ease of processing and handling, they try to get a little bit more moisture in them when they're handling them, so that when they do get to the store, that they're not all cracked and split.
Got it. So my grandma taught me that when I dump the bag of beans in the water to make the soup, anything that floats to the top is bad. Is that kind of what you're talking about? A few, like 5-10 of the beans in the bag will float to the top. You want to take them out before I use them in soup. Right.
They may be a hollow bean or a crack split or something like that. I wouldn't say they're a bad bean. It's just that maybe that grandma was pulling your leg on that. I don't know. I think you can still make your soup out of them, but like I said, if you choose to pick them out, that would be fine too.
Got it. Well, grandma's not here anymore to vent herself. So.
Okay. All right. She's not going to double check our facts.
No, she probably won't.
Okay. All right.
So what's your favorite thing about farming dry edible beans?
What's my favorite thing about farming dry edible beans? Well, dry edible beans are a little different crop than we're used to raising. You know, sugar beets, wheat, and soybeans. So different season. It's a little bit shorter season. It makes the workload on the farm a little bit easier. But I really enjoyed harvesting dry beans because I mean it's a field to table product. So I mean when you're taking and making a good quality product in the combine, in the truck to your dealer, now you have something to sell right to the consumer.
So it's not this interview process? That's not your favorite part?
Well, now that you're here.
So where do the beans go when you're done harvesting? How do they get to the stores?
Well, normally they go through our dealer. We haul them to an elevator and then they're processed, just cleaned. They take out any foreign material, so to speak, and then they're bagged and processed. You know, a lot of our beans, typically grown here in Minnesota and North Dakota, go all over the world. Europe is a big importer of navy beans. South America, more of the Central American countries, pintos, black beans, kidney beans, even as they go to Japan and the Far East. So I mean, all over the world. But I've grabbed a pail of beans out of my combine and take them home for my wife to make baked beans. So I mean, you can take them and source them locally, or you can be all over the world and find them.
All right, so I won't necessarily see you at a farmer's market next weekend, or in the fall.
Probably not. No, no, I haven't quite graduated to that yet, but it could. So Amber, being Midwest mom, you're cooking a lot of different types of food. Why do you cook beans?
Oh, they're a great source of fiber, great source of protein, really inexpensive. My family and I were on WIC back when we had small children, and it was one of the items approved on the WIC list. You could get dry beans, and it was, if you got the canned beans versus the dry beans, you could get a really huge bag of dry beans for this minimal price compared to the cans. And it feeds your family for a really long time.
Right, and very shelf stable. You can store beans in a dry form for a long time. And that's a big plus to growing dry beans. How about recipes? Do you see a need? Do you have a lot of people asking for bean recipes?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's mostly because, the calico beans and ham. My mom makes, we call them magic beans, but it's the typical thing you'll see at a graduation or a party where it's, ground beef and bacon and all sorts of beans. I don't even think everybody knows how many beans are in there. Where do lima beans sit on this scale? We talked about kidney beans and navy beans and pinto beans, but where do lima beans sit?
I don't do lima beans. No, I don't know, and I don't. It's not that I don't know what a lima bean is. I don't like lima beans.
I hate them. I hate lima beans. So that's why I was asking, because I was like, I keep trying to convince my mom to take it out of her magic beans, but she won't. Well, thank you so much for having me. I think I learned more in just our short conversation than I have in a really long time about farming. I appreciate you having me and inviting me here, and I'm sure our viewers feel the same.
Well, thank you, Amber. It was fun. I did enjoy our time together. It was nice to see some interest in the dry beans. I think you're doing a great service to the advocacy of dry beans.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My mom and my grandma's recipes will appreciate it as well.
You bet. Yep.